The traveler stands at the edge of a new horizon. Behind him stretches a long road, one paved with difficult lessons about his own worth, his deepest fears, and the lingering sting of abandonment and rejection. That road forced him to learn that fear isn't necessarily the enemy, and that rejection doesn't dictate a person's value. He discovered just how fragile human connection can be. Yet, as he looks out over this new territory, one vital question remains. After all the heartbreak, all the disappointment, can I trust again? To answer yes means acknowledging a harsh reality. Trusting isn't about waiting for a guarantee that the future is safe, or believing that pain is impossible. It requires choosing to trust despite knowing those risks exist. Every meaningful relationship, every act of vulnerability, carries an inherent risk of getting hurt. There are no exceptions to this rule. Now, he must decide how to navigate an unknown path where certainty simply doesn't exist. Many respond to the weight of past trauma by closing their hearts. We construct rigid walls, building a fortress where vulnerability cannot reach us. The logic is straightforward. If nothing is allowed to breach the barrier, nothing can inflict damage. A promise of complete protection. We build these barriers brick by brick through everyday actions. We pull away when a conversation gets too intimate. We endlessly overthink every possible outcome of a new relationship, and we demand absolute guarantees before taking a single step forward. But this intense craving for absolute safety crashes against a stubborn fact. We live in a wildly unpredictable world where people are deeply complex and outcomes can never be fully controlled. That promise of absolute protection ends up being a trap. But emotional isolation doesn't bring true safety. It leaves you frozen, stuck in a state of protective paralysis, where life happens entirely outside your reach. Eventually, the traveler recognized the fatal flaw in his architecture. The exact same walls designed to keep pain and disappointment out are perfectly effective at keeping love out too. He found himself caught in a paradox. He had successfully engineered a perfectly safe environment, and as a result, he was completely isolated and trapped inside his own defenses. Looking back at the wounds that made him build those walls in the first place, another realization surfaced. The most painful moments of his life had certainly brought suffering, but suffering wasn't the only thing they brought. Those deep periods of grief and disappointment also forced him to grow. They demanded a level of compassion, profound wisdom, and emotional depth that he never would have possessed otherwise. Surviving those moments offered evidence that the core self he feared losing was actually reinforced by the struggle. Each time he rebuilt his life, he gained a tangible record of resilience, a strength acting as a durable foundation for future risks. For years, the traveler assumed courage meant an absolute lack of fear. He thought it looked like complete confidence, the total absence of doubt, and the elimination of any vulnerable feelings. Now, he understands something entirely different. True courage doesn't require eliminating your fear. Courage is making the choice to move forward while fear walks right alongside you. It means abandoning the impossible demand that nothing bad will ever happen again. Instead, it's the quiet resolve of knowing that even if something difficult occurs, you remain standing. To embrace this, he had to look closely at the architects of his old walls, the overthinker who chased certainty, the fearful version who dreaded rejection, the controller who managed every outcome. Each of those past versions was doing their absolute best to protect him from getting hurt. And having recognized that, he could finally thank them for their service and let them rest. The journey shifted away from becoming bulletproof. Real progress meant developing enough internal safety to remain emotionally open, regardless of what happens next. So the traveler looks back to the path ahead. The future remains unwritten. People will continue to be unpredictable, and opening up to them will always carry a very real risk. None of those external realities have changed, but the person standing at the edge of this horizon is not the same person who started the journey. He has traded the rigid demand for absolute certainty for a much stronger foundation, emotional security. It's an internal state built on self-trust, capable of adapting to whatever the world throws at it. This kind of self-trust is the quiet, unshakable confidence that no matter what external outcome occurs, whether a relationship blossoms or ends, he will remain deeply and safely connected to himself. The deepest form of trust relies on your own ability to meet life as it unfolds, independent of external promises or outcomes. If part of you is listening to this while carrying your own heavy wounds, feeling entirely terrified by the idea of risking your heart again, hear this. Your hesitation makes perfect sense. Your caution and your fear are completely understandable and natural responses to the heartbreak you've survived. But the pain of your past does not have to become the prison of your future. You do not have to endure a lifetime of emotional isolation just to avoid getting hurt. You don't need certainty before taking the next step. You don't need foolproof guarantees, perfect conditions, or absolute proof that everything is going to work out flawlessly. You only need the willingness to trust yourself along the way. A secure heart chooses to love because it possesses the quiet knowledge that even if it breaks, it can heal.